Hi, and welcome to this PowerShell tutorial video. In this video, we're going to be combining once again the import Excel module and PowerShell together in order to combine data from multiple sheets in an Excel file. This was a request from Tirta Chavan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they really wanted to know how to take multiple sheets, combine that data together, and then have that export to either display on the screen, or I'm assuming also to export that into another file to be able to use that for any other processes. So let's go ahead and let's actually get started. I have 3 ways to do this. They're going to increase in complexity for each one, but I believe that by the time we get to the last one, I believe that it will get probably the most benefit um, for most people. So let's go ahead and let's get started by first importing our module import Excel. And then we're going to be creating a file, a variable, sorry, called working file. And we are going to set that to the path of our Excel file. So I'm just going to right click on this Excel file here and copy the path. And I'm just going to actually go ahead and open up this Excel file for you guys to show you what it is. So this is our Excel file. So we have 4 sheets here, and we have a bunch of employees that are just named test 1 through test 12, and then their hours worked, and it is the exact same for all 4 sheets with just different values for the hours worked. So we are going to be combining this data together. So once we have um, our file path for that Excel file, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to open up that file. So we're going to create a variable called file, and we're going to set that to open dash Excel package dash path, and we are going to give it our path here of working file. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get all the sheets in this file. So we're going to do file, so sheets equals file dot workbook dot worksheets dot name. And then if we actually just run all of this here and we look at our sheets variable, we do get week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, which is perfect. Those are the name of our sheets. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to prepare our export variable. So we're going to go ahead and create our variable export, and we are going to make that equal to system.collections.array list, and we're going to make that to an empty array list. And what we're going to do now, we're going to loop through all of our sheets. So we're going to do a for each sheet in sheets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do export plus equal import dash Excel. And then our Excel package is going to be file. And then our worksheet name is going to be sheet. And let's go ahead and let's run all of this here. And now if we look at our export, we will see that we have a bunch of data here. So we can actually see here name, hours worked in our columns. We can see test 1 through test 12, test 1 through test 12, test 1 through test 12, and test run through test 12. So it did combine all the sheets together. Now, I personally would not find this super useful in this scenario where the multiple sheets are actually the same type of data where it's employees with hours worked. Maybe what we would want is we would want to kind of add those hours together and combine that. So let's go ahead and look at a second way of doing this to combine this data. But this would work very well if you had multiple sheets of, let's say, each sheet was representing a different item for an inventory system, and you looped through all the sheets to gather all of the items that you sell, all the inventory numbers of those items, and then combine them into one sheet. That would definitely be a great example where you would want to use this solution. It would be a very, very quick, easy solution, and it would do exactly what you would want. So let's go ahead and let's actually, we might as well show how to export this as well. So what we can do here is we could actually do our export, oops, our export. We could pipe that to export-excel. What we can do, we can give it a path here of C, scripts, Excel combined sheets, month, 1, XLSX. And that should be pretty good. That should give us the result that we want. So let's go ahead and let's open that file here. So there it is. It's in one sheet. We have all the data from all 4 sheets in one sheet. So like I said, this would work really, really well if you had an Excel with, let's say, an inventory. One sheet was stationery, one sheet was video games, another sheet was housewares, and you just wanted to combine them all into one file. So that would be that one. So the second one is actually going to be we're going to be exporting into a hash table. So this one, there is the limitation of if you have multiple columns, this one isn't going to be great. But this one is definitely pretty good for this example. But again, the next one that we're going to be showing after that might be a little bit better for this example as well. But let's go ahead and let's create another variable here. We're going to call it export hash so we can actually signify the difference. And we're going to set this to an empty hash table. Now, we haven't seen these a whole lot in our videos, other in the tutorial series, I believe, probably the beginner or intermediate. I don't quite remember where I put this, but it's going to be in the hash tables. So we're creating a hash table by simply doing the @ symbol and then an open and close curly bracket. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do, once again, a for each sheet in sheets. So really, it's always the same basic idea. And then what we're going to do for this one is we're going to do a data equals import Excel. And then once again, the Excel package is going to be file. The worksheet name is going to be sheet. That part never really changes. And then we're going to do a for each. Let me spell that correctly here. A for each, and then we're going to do for each row in data. So once we get our data back from our Excel sheets, we are going to go ahead and we are going to go through each row. And that is because a hash table is very similar to a dictionary. They're pretty much identical, and we're going to be storing key value pairs in this hash table. So we're going to be storing our key, which is going to be our name of our employee, and then the value is going to be hours worked. So what we first want to do is when we go through each of these rows, we're going to want to check in our hash table if our employee is already there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a if export hash dot, and we're going to do contains key, and our key is going to be row dot name. We're going to do open and close curly bracket, and then we're going to do an else open and close curly bracket. So if the export hash does not contain our name, what we're going to do is we're going to do an export hash dot add and our key is going to be row dot name, and our value is going to be row dot hours worked. And then if our entry does exist in our export hash, what we're going to do is we're going to do export hash dot item. We're going to be picking our item, which is our row dot name. So we're specifying our key here, and that instantly gets the value. So we're going to do a plus equals row dot hours worked. So this is going to add our hours worked to what's already in there for that employee. And let's go ahead and let's just look at what export hash would look like afterwards. So let's run this whole section here. And here it is. So as we can see, the hash table isn't ordered in any way there, but we have our 12 employees. So we have test 1 here, test 12 here. We have 12 names. And then we have the value, which is the total of hours worked for that employee across the 4 sheets. So this definitely adds a lot of value to something like time sheets in Excel. If you have one Excel file for your timesheets and you just have multiple sheets for different weeks or different months, you can definitely easily get the total this way, which is definitely a pretty nice feature. So let me just go ahead and let's go ahead and look at the last one here, which is going to be exporting with objects. So let me just set up this here. So let me just minimize this a little bit. And we are just going to go ahead and create another array list. So we're going to call this one export objects because that is what we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with tons of objects in this one, and we're going to be storing them in our array list. So we're going to be doing our export objects is going to be equal to system.collections.array list, and we're going to set that to an empty array list. And then, as you've already probably expected, we are going to do a for each sheet in sheets, open and close curly brackets. And once again, we're going to have our data variable equal to import dash Excel, our Excel package. The autocomplete is not liking me today. So our Excel package is going to be file. Our worksheet name is going to be sheet. All right. And then very similarly to the hash table example, we're going to have a for each row in data. All right, perfect. So now what we want to do is we want to check if something already exists in this array list. Now, because array lists and objects don't really have key value pairs, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pipe and basically select where the name is equal. Now, be aware that I am using names because I know that all my names are unique. If you wanted to use this example in real life for timesheets, you would definitely want to be basing it on the employee ID and not the name. So that is definitely one thing to note here. This is a very generic case, but we can definitely actually edit this right after we do this, and we can actually change it up to be the employee ID, just to show you guys how flexible this solution is. So once we are in our for each row in data, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do an if the export objects, and then we're going to do pipe where object name is equal to row dot name, open and close curly brackets, else open and close curly brackets. What we are going to want to do here is if we don't find it, we want to then create it. So what we need to do here is we need to go ahead and create another variable called entry. We're going to make that equal to a new object. And we are going to do a type name PS object. Now there are other ways to create objects. By all means, you guys can create them many different ways. This is just the way that I like to do it, to just have it a much easier way to follow on a tutorial video. Then we're going to be doing a add member commandlet here, and we're going to be doing the input object of entry. So we're adding a member to entry. Our member type is going to be a note property. The name of our property is going to be name, and the value is going to be row.name. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing once again. Instead of name for our name here, we're going to do hours worked, and we're going to set that equal to row.hours worked. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do our export objects dot add, and we're going to add entry in there. Now, what happens if we actually find our object here. So what we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to store that in a variable. So let's call it found. And we're actually going to basically copy paste this line. Now you could actually put the found object right here, and then you could just do if found. It'll create it. Once again, it's completely up to you. There's a lot of ways to actually do this one solution. So once we have our found variable, what we're going to do is we're going to do found dot hours worked plus equals row dot hours worked. And then if we go ahead and we do our export objects at the bottom here to see what is in there. Once we do that, once we run that code, there is our items here. So we have test 1 is 109, test 2 is 143, test 3 is 143, test 4 is 145. As you can see, we have test 1 through test 12, and then the hours worked total for each of those employees. Now, as I mentioned, this really wouldn't work really well in a real life scenario, especially for this case, because two employees can have the exact same name. So we would actually have to slightly change this to have the employee ID. So let's actually just go ahead, go into our month here, and let's insert a column. And let's just call this employee ID. And let's do 001. And I'm just going to do it that way here. I would really like it to actually do 1001. And there you go. So that should be good. So if we do copy, insert columns before, paste, insert columns before, paste, and insert columns before, paste. And then just to do that real test here, let's actually put this here to Jacked, and then Jacked. So these employees actually have the same name here. Now what you could even do is you could have another file which has all your employees name to their employee ID, and then you could easily reference that. It would be more of like a database style of idea. But let's just go ahead and let's do that here. So once we have that change, now what we can do is instead of for this export objects, first let's actually just import our files once again here. And let's do our name is fine. What we're actually going to want to do is we're going to add another row into our entry. We're going to do employee ID. We're going to do row dot employee ID, and then row dot employee ID, row dot employee ID. And that should actually be perfect. So if we run this here, this should be and actually is where's name is actually should be where employee ID, where employee ID. That is where I went wrong here. Let's just go ahead and let's run this once again. So there it is. Now it's ran correctly here. So here we have our different employee IDs, our names, our hours worked, and even though there was 2 employees with the same name, it still calculated the hours as expected. And this lets you have more than one column, whereas the hash table method really only lets you have 2 columns. Then once again, once you would have your export objects, all you can simply do is pipe that to export Excel, and let's give it a path here of C scripts Excel combined sheets month good.xlsx, and let's run that here. And if we go ahead and we open that file here, we can actually see we have one sheet and all the data is combined. So that is 3 ways that you can combine data in Excel sheets. Again, I would really recommend the first one and the last one. The second one is useful, but mostly in very specific circumstances. But the first one is very, very good. So this very simple solution here of just taking all the sheets, adding them together, and then exporting them works great if you don't have like repeating values over the sheets that you would want to technically add up. So like an inventory type of Excel file. And then this uh, option here, which usually works with objects. You can have as many columns as you want. You would be able to add different values together or just not add the different values together. Like in this one, we didn't really change the name. We didn't change the employee ID, but we still kept them. And then we just kind of incremented the hours worked. So there's definitely a lot of possibilities that you can do, but at least now Tircha Shaban, you do know how to actually combine those sheets, export that data out into one file. So I hope that worked. If any of you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know down below in the comments, and I will get to them as fast as I can. If you guys have any questions, that a video would be super handy and could help out a lot of people, kind of like Tirta did, I will definitely be making a video for you guys. If it's something a little bit more specific, I'll answer you guys directly in the comment section. And then also, if you guys want to also just like and hit that subscribe button and make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.